What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So we did the delete kit video. I'll try to link it here or somewhere down below. Today we're going to do a top end rebuild on the PW80. Super easy, 2-stroke. So let's get to it. Alright, first thing we're going to do, I'm going to clean this up a little bit. See if we can zoom in. I always go the wrong way first. I'm going to try and clean this up as best I can. Get all the old, looks like there's a little gasket and a little gunk on there. So I'm going to go ahead and take some carb spray, and then I'm going to try and rub all this off of there. So let's get that. All right, now we got to clean. The next thing we want to do is put the head on. So first thing we need to do is check out the new kit. Here's everything that came in the kit. If you notice something's missing, you would be correct. It's missing a gasket to go between the engine and the cylinder. But I did, for some reason, I thought of ordering another gasket kit for this bike. And it's a good thing I did because it didn't come with one. So we got that green one in there. That'll go between the engine case and the cylinder. This one here got bent in transit, so we'll junk that one, and we'll go ahead and throw this on. A few other gaskets, I think those are reed valve. I'm not sure what those are. Let me know below. And this one here, I think is the crush washer for the exhaust. So these look in pretty good condition. They're not light. They don't feel cheap, chintzy. I mean, I did buy the non-Yamaha OEM version. Here's the new piston. Your piston rings, your wrist pin, and your 2 clips to keep the piston on. There must be on the floor, also the new needle bearing. It did come with that. I must have left it on the floor before I put it back up here. So first thing we'll get this piston installed. I'll show you how to get the rings on, and then I'll show you an easy way to get the clips and the wrist pin in, and then we'll get the rest installed. Alright, since this is brand new, I'm going to check at least one spec on this, and it's going to be the piston ring end gap. I know there's a lot of other things you can check, the bore and all that, but usually these are pretty, I want to say okay. The one that's going to be off the most when you buy this replacement stuff is going to be the end gap clearance. And what that is the distance between the end here and the end here when it's inside the cylinder. So what we do, we're going to compress that in, get it in the cylinder, and then we're going to go ahead and use the piston, and we're going to push it down about 1 inch. I usually just use the opening here in the piston to gauge, and it's stopped in there, and now that way this is square and even. So what we're going to do is we're going to slide a feeler gauge inside of there between the gap. Alright, our minimum, there's actually a typo here in the manual. I have the climber manual. I would highly suggest getting one. I know you can get everything on Google, but this thing really helpful. But there's a typo in this one. The minimum's 6 thousandths, so my 6 thousandths gauge has to fit through there. If my 6 thousandths doesn't, I would just take the ring out and I would file a little bit off, put it back in and check until it does fit. And then that's 0.006, and my next one it says 0.0024, which is actually smaller, so that one should be 0.024. That should be my maximum. If I can fit that in there, and I can fit something even bigger in, if I can fit something bigger than that in there, then these need to be replaced. So the largest gap you're allowed to have is a 0.024. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be able to even get a 0.024 in there. Let's try that one first. So we'll check the gauge. There's my 0.024. It won't fit in there. I'd imagine this one's probably around 0.016, 0.18. So we're good on the maximum. We're under the max, so we're good there. Now let's check the minimum, 0.006. And we'll go ahead and slide that in there. I don't know if you can see that, but when we're looking in there, see if you can see that. Slide that between the ring, and that slides in there pretty nice. So I'm larger than the minimum, but I'm smaller than the maximum. So we're good on that one. So we'll go ahead and check the other one. And if they're both good, we'll install them on the piston, and I'll show you how to do that. Alright, so next thing we're going to do, we're going to get these piston rings installed onto the piston. For these ones, it's real easy. There's a little pin, and that's where your gap is going to go. Alright, I already did the first one to show you. You install the gap around that little ring or pin, and you want the long towards the bottom. Okay, so you want the bevel out, and the longer end towards the bottom, shorter end towards the top. So we'll get that one in, we'll get the second one in, and then I'll show you a quick trick on the wrist pin, and we'll get it installed on the bike. Alright, last thing we're going to do on the piston before we start installing everything, we're going to get these one of these little clips in. That way we only need to install one of them when we put the wrist pin in on the actual motor itself. So we're going to go ahead and grab some needle nose, and we're going to grab the clip just like this, and we're going to want to put that open end into this little groove right there into the side of the piston. So we're going to get that in first, and then kind of pinch the rest of it in and get it into that groove. So let's see if I can do that here. Camera. So we're going to set that in the groove there. And that's it. It just pops right in. So just get that open end piece. Just lay it right there. Get that into the groove, and then go ahead and pinch the rest in. That'll help us when we have it in the engine. Now all we're going to have to do is slide the wrist pin through to the one side, and then we only need to install one clip while it's actually on the engine itself. So now we got everything here. I did find the needle bearing. It was just sitting in the back. We'll go ahead and get the rest of this installed on the motor. Alright, last thing, we're going to get everything installed. It's pretty straightforward. First thing on is going to be our gasket. So we'll go ahead and slide that on. Doesn't matter which side you go. I'm going to go ahead and put the letters down. So we'll get that on. I think the hardest part about this is actually getting the gaskets out of the gasket kit without ripping them. So once you get there, you're already doing better than I almost was, because I thought I ripped it a few times. So get that on there. Alright, next thing we're going to do is we're going to get our piston on here. So like I said, found our wrist pin. We're going to go ahead and slide that in here, just like so. And then we're going to get our piston on. One thing you need to do is make sure this arrow is pointed towards the exhaust. So on this one, exhaust is down. Other machines, it's down, up, left, right. Just depends. So arrow always goes to the exhaust. So we're going to get that in here. And that helpful trick I had, we have our one side in here. It happens to be the far side. So we made out good to help you see that on the video. So we're going to go ahead and get that in there. And then we're going to slide our wrist pin through until it stops at that other clip. So we're going to get that in. All thing you got to do is line it up with everything. There we go. Everything lined up. Alright, once you get that pushed all the way through, next thing you're just going to take this clip, do the same thing you did with the first one. Get the open end in that groove first, and then pinch it down through. This is definitely the trickier of the two, which is why we did one off of the piston before we got it installed. So get it in there, in your groove, and then grab the ring and pinch it into place. Once you got it started, you should be able to take the pliers and clip it in just like that. So it's a lot easier if you do it this way, then you'll need to do one side while it's attached instead of both. Now next thing we do is going to be slide the cylinder on. We need to make sure that those piston rings are around those little pins that were in the side of the piston. Get those lined up. I'll show you that real quick. Maybe. There we go, there we are. So right in there, there's that around that little pin. And then same thing on this one. So we need to make sure when we install that, squeeze that into the cylinder, that those stay like that. Get the cylinder on. One quick easy way. Get a little bit of oil on your finger and you can rub it around inside the cylinder real quick. That'll just burn off when you first turn it on. And we'll go ahead and get a little bit more and we'll rub it around the actual piston. And we'll check again, make sure those rings are around the pins, and then we'll go ahead and install the cylinder. So one thing to note, you can't install this upside down, it'll just look funny. Just make sure on this the exhaust is pointed down. You'll be able to tell right away if you have it on upside down. So once we get it in, turn that sideways for you. We're going to want to pinch those rings as much as we can when it gets to the cylinder. So we'll pinch that a little bit and we'll get that first one through. Once you're there, make sure the second one's lined up where it should be. Just give it a little tap. So our first one's in. And then we'll get our second one in. So we'll pinch that tight again. And we'll give it a couple bumps, lightly. And we'll pinch that ring. Making sure it stays in place. And we'll give that a couple bumps as well. Now we're pretty well clipped on. Now we should be able to slide it on the rest of the way. You might have to give it a couple taps. Once you get past the rings, the rest gets a little easier. You just need to make sure that the cylinder goes into the actual casing of the engine. Just like that. And we'll clamp it the rest of the way down. And it should look like this. Like I said, you'll be able to tell if you have it on upside down immediately, as this will be coned up like that. So once we got that, I'm going to put our next gasket on. This one's a little tight, so I just pinch the rods a little bit and slide it on. So we'll get that one there, and then we'll throw the head on. Same thing with the head, you can put this on upside down too, but the minute you do, it'll also look really funny. So it'll stick up a lot taller than the rest. So we'll go ahead and install it the right way. Line everything up. This one's real easy, goes right on, and we'll put some bolts on here. One thing this kit didn't come with was washers, and I didn't see any washers in the parts box. So I'm going to put my own washers. There's some in the manual, it shows. So I got a couple I'm going to put on there, and then I'll throw the bolts on, or the nuts on, and we'll tighten it down. Alright, I didn't like the bolts it came with. I couldn't find the ones in the original that were flanged. And if you look in the manual, there's some flanged security bolts, and here's the ones that came with it. They're a little chintzy, kind of cheap. So I went to the hardware store quick. I picked up a nice lock washer, spring washer, and then a nice bolt. So I'm gonna get these thrown on. We'll get it tightened down. It says 80 foot-pounds, which seems a little tight to me, but we'll get them on. I don't have a torque wrench. I just broke mine, so we'll get it tightened down pretty tight, not too crazy, because I don't want to strip anything or break anything. So let's get it on. I thought these were going to be 10 millimeter. Looks like these are going to be 11. Let's try the 11, and there we go, 11 mil. Originals are 10, these are 11. They're a little beefier. I trust them way more. And then we'll get them tightened up. Got Hotel Transylvania on the background, so that keep it nice and fun while you're watching me screw these together. So 85 foot-pound, that's pretty tight actually, so we'll get these real snug. I guess it makes a lot more power than our little 50cc. A little love. Alright, we get those tight. Alright, once we get that installed nice and tight, we can check for compression real easy like this, just by hand. Put our thumb on the hole here, and you should feel a little pressure building there. It's not going to blow your hand off because we're doing it by hand, but you should be able to feel it. Definitely on that stroke. You can kind of hear it. Leave a little gap in there and you can hear the air coming out of there. So we're definitely got compression, so we're good. Got the new top end on, got our plug on. Last thing we're gonna check on this is to make sure the kickstart is properly installed, and we can button it back up. Hopefully get it back on the bike, get it started. All right, so after I got that all buttoned up, I got everything back on. I put the kickstart back on, and I put everything back on the bike, and I kept kicking it over. Finally got a little bit, and then it seized up. I thought it was the head maybe, so I went back in and I greased the piston and the cylinder a little bit more, put it back together, tried it again. I got it to turn over a little bit more again, and then same thing, it froze. So I took the head off and I looked inside, and I noticed that the connecting rod was rubbing a little bit against the case. So this one's actually going to turn into a complete teardown. So we're going to tear down the entire case, split the cases, and see what's going on in there. I think it's going to have to do with a lot of play in the connecting rod, a lot of side-to-side play. There's no up and down really, but there's a ton of side-to-side. It looks like the connecting rod actually comes out and totally touches the crankshaft. So we'll check that out. Make sure you tune into a future video. We'll do a complete breakdown of the PW80. Hopefully we can find what we get the right parts ordered, everything put back together, and finally actually ride the bike. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.